much, Josh. We appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and to speak with all of your members. So as Josh said, my name is Tracy Marshall, and I have the honor of serving as the Division Director for the state's new Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program, which is being run out of the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. Joining me today, I also have our Family Policy Managers, Evan Grimes and Lydia Waligorski. Also with us today is Anne Dooley. She is joining from our product development team, and she'll be speaking to some of the technical specifications later on this morning. Jessica Smith is on with us as our communications manager, and we also have Michelle Berry, who is our communications strategist. So definitely plenty of support here today from the CDLE team. So if we move on to the agenda, there's quite a few things that we're going to try and cover for you in the next hour. That's going to include what FAMLI is, the benefits that FAMLI can offer to small businesses, the timeline of our rollout, how FAMLI is funded, how you can calculate premiums, what your private plan options may look like moving forward, our rulemaking process, how FAMLI impacts local government agencies, the best ways that you and your business can prepare for FAMLI. We'll also touch on the technical compatibility, and then we'll move into our Q&A session. So let's start with a quick overview of the program itself. Starting in January 2024, FAMLI will provide 12 weeks or up to 16 weeks for birth complications of paid leave for Colorado workers to take care of themselves and their loved ones during certain life events. This may include managing a serious health condition, caring for a new child, whether they were adopted or placed during foster care, making arrangements ahead of a military deployment, or for someone needing to deal with the immediate needs and impacts arising from domestic partner violence or sexual assault. The program will cover almost all workers in Colorado, including those who are self-employed. The FAMLI program is a social insurance program with both employers and employees contributing to the fund that will eventually pay out the benefits. The premiums are set to 0.9% of the employee's wage, with half of that being paid by the employer and the other half being paid by the employee. In today's tight labor market, with employers struggling to hire everywhere, offering paid family leave is becoming the new floor of benefit offerings. We understand that to some employers, this may feel like yet another change that's going to complicate how you operate your business. But FAMLI doesn't just benefit your employees. There are definite tangible benefits for every Colorado employer. We're committed to making FAMLI as easy to administer as possible. FAMLI premiums will largely work in the same way and on the same schedule as the existing unemployment insurance system. Employers will only need to register and pay into the premium system. And when an employee needs to use FAMLI leave, that process will be managed through the state, much like unemployment insurance is today. FAMLI is a cost-effective way for employers to provide paid family leave. It's a benefit that workers want, and the state program allows Colorado small businesses to provide it easily and cost-effectively. Research has told us that employees with access to paid leave are more likely to return to their jobs and remain in the workforce, helping employers be more competitive, retain talent, and reduce the cost to find and train replacements. There is also a growing body of evidence showing that access to paid family leave can improve employee morale and productivity. A decade after California introduced paid family leave, 90% of employers surveyed said that paid family leave had either a neutral or a positive impact on employee morale and productivity. Next slide, please. So here you can see our implementation timeline for how FAMLI will roll out over the next couple of years. Earlier this year in January, we completed our first round of rulemaking, a process that will continue through the year. We've already begun our public education campaign by offering webinars, creating newsletters, and doing catered presentations to organizations like yours. We'll begin hosting in-person town halls next week, in addition to offering a variety of educational resources as part of a multi-year public education campaign to ensure that both employers and your workers are ready for FAMLI. Next January, you'll start deducting premiums from employees and subsequently remitting those payments along with wage data within the FAMLI system. Premium payments for the first quarter of 2023 will be due on April 30th of next year. There will be a 30-day grace period as we adapt to these changes. Finally, beginning on January 1st of 2024, covered workers will be able to submit requests for FAMLI leave. So as I mentioned earlier, FAMLI is a voter-approved initiative that will be funded by both employers and employees. Employers with 9 or fewer employees are not required to pay the employer share of the premium. They will only have to deduct and remit the 0.45% employee premium from their workers on a quarterly basis. Employers with 10 or more employees will share in the cost by matching that 0.45% premium. Employers can also choose to cover the employee premium as an additional perk if they wish to. Self-employed individuals may also voluntarily participate in the program, and they would pay that 0.45% employee premium. So again, the initial FAMLI premium rate is fixed at 0.9% through 2024. For 2025 and beyond, the director of the FAMLI division sets the premium rate according to a formula based on the monetary value of the fund every year. FAMLI premiums will never go above 1.2%, and that's per the statute. It's been demonstrated in several states that premiums have decreased and benefits have been able to increase over time. While we believe the state program will be the most efficient and cost-effective way for Colorado employers to offer paid family leave, those employers who choose to offer paid family leave benefits through a private plan may apply to do so. So moving on to Evan, let's talk a little bit about wages.
Thanks, Tracy. I want to talk briefly about what wages will be subject to family premiums starting in January 2023. We're in the process of updating our rules to make family even simpler in our employer community. And to that end, we intend to use the same calculation of wages as employers are accustomed to using for the unemployment insurance system. Wages subject to family premiums will be the same wages subject to unemployment insurance. Premiums will be paid on wages up to the federal Social Security wage cap. So keep in mind, insofar as the Social Security wage cap is not set in stone, that cap will change every year. But again, we want to make the administration of family as easy and painless as possible for our employers. And you can find a list of payments that are considered wages on our website at the link here in this deck. So next, I want to talk about how we count the number of employees under the family program. Your employer count will be calculated once a year by counting the number of employees you have on your payroll during each of 20 or more calendar work weeks in the preceding calendar year. So in 2023, employers that report having 10 or more employees who worked during 20 or more weeks in all of 2022 will be required to pay the employer share of the premium for all 4 quarters in 2023. Employees on paid or unpaid leave, including sick or medical leave, leaves of absence, disciplinary suspension, etc., should be counted as long as the employer expects the employee to return to active employment. Back to you, Tracy.
Thank you. So let's talk about what FAMLI will look like for employees once it's up and running in 2024. Here you can see a few ranges of what premium deductions and benefit payments will look like based on an employee's wage. When taking eligible family leave, employees will receive up to 90% of their wages based on a sliding scale. Benefits are capped at $1,100 per week. This is proportional to the average weekly wage for Colorado, and it may increase over time. We have a benefit amount calculator on our website to help families get a rough estimate of both their deductions and their eventual benefit payments. Premiums are paid on wages up to the federal Social Security wage cap. And keep in mind, this is not set in stone. It will change as the Social Security cap changes every year, which will change what the capped out rate is. We've updated the sample employee pay stub we have in our employer toolkit on our website. Here you can see that example. To align with SUI wages, cafeteria 125 deductions will not be subject to FAMLI premiums. So the first 4 deductions listed here were taken out of the gross wages, and the remaining wages are subject to FAMLI premiums. So that's 0.45% of $4,900 for a total deduction of $22.05. Evan, if you could talk to us about private plans, please.
Sure. So first, I want to emphasize that we are in the process of drafting rules around private plans with the goal of publishing these in the coming weeks. So as we go through this process, we certainly encourage you to share any feedback you have with us. So in order to qualify for an exemption from paid leave benefits under the family division, employers must offer a plan to all employees that provides all of the same rights, protections, and benefits as Colorado's family paid leave program. So for example, in order to be approved, a private plan must offer at least the same number of weeks of benefits, offer at least the same level of wage replacement for each week of benefits, include no additional requirements or conditions, deduct no more than the same amount from employee paychecks as the state plan, cover all employees through the duration of their employment, and remain compliant with any additional requirements established by the family division. Now, several insurance companies who already provide private plans in other states have already expressed interest. And again, we anticipate having the rules for private plans adopted in the near future in order to give employers and insurers time to shop for services. Now, employers that go the route of self-insurance instead of a private plan through a third-party insurance provider will be required to submit a surety bond to the division, as the division needs to vet the financial standing of the company in order to approve their private plan. I do want to touch briefly on the rulemaking process. Again, we encourage all employers to provide comment on our proposed and adopted rules, either in writing or via our public comment hearings. Our proposed rules for benefits and employer participation are currently published on our rules page of our website, and a public hearing is set for August 2nd at 5 p.m. We anticipate having our proposed private plan rules published very soon as well. So next, I want to talk briefly about local governments. Unlike private employers, local governments have a few unique options when it comes to their participation in the family program. Here are those 3 options. Here are those 3 options. So the first option is to participate fully in the family program. This means the local government agency agrees to pay the employer share of the premium. That's 0.45% of wages if there's 10 or more employees, and that's 0% of wages if there's fewer than 10 employees. You also agree to remit the employee's half of the premium along with the wage data to the family division once a quarter. The second option is to decline all participation in the family program. In order to do this, the local government's governing body must vote to do so. The local government then has to notify the family division of their vote to decline participation. That decision is good for 8 years, and if the local government wants to remain opted out of the family program beyond 8 years, it has to vote again to do so. And employees of a local government in this scenario still have the option of voluntarily participating in the program, but they would be responsible for remitting 0.45% of their own wages along with their wage reports to the family division every quarter. And the third option is to simply decline employer participation in FAMLI. So this is still essentially a local government opt-out. However, the local government agrees to assist the employees who decide to individually participate in FAMLI. And that assistance would look like facilitating voluntary payroll deductions to cover the premiums that the employees owe to the family division, and remitting that local government employee share of the premiums and wage data once a quarter. Now I will hand it back to Tracy to talk about some steps in preparing for the FAMLI program.
Thanks, Evan. So we've outlined here 6 key steps to consider when you're preparing your business for Colorado's paid family leave program. First of all, determine how FAMLI will apply to your organization. Estimate your premium liability. Use the calculator on the FAMLI website, or for multiple employees, use the set formula and rate to create a spreadsheet that works best for your business needs. Consider your plan options. While the market for private plans are not yet available, and details on self-insured options with the use of a surety bond paid to the state are still forthcoming, private sector employers may want to plan for conversations with insurance brokers and financial planners. Local governments can use this time to determine what level of participation in FAMLI is best for them. Talk to your HR partners. Begin incorporating language into employee manuals regarding premium deductions, and adopt clear guidance for your employees around FAMLI benefits. It's ideal to do that in the fall of 2023. If you use a payroll company or if you process payroll yourself, participating employers will need a plan in place to deduct FAMLI premiums and submit them to CDLE beginning January 1st of 2023. Ask us questions. We're so committed to helping you navigate the new program and ensuring your success. We definitely want to hear from you. We're currently in the process of building an online FAMLI employer services portal that meets the needs of our employer community. We'll be rolling out the system later this year. Every employer will need to register in the system. I'm going to hand over to Ann Dooley now. She's going to summarize the different methods employers and third-party administrators will be able to use when registering, submitting wage data, and paying premiums. So this is where the technical pieces come in. Thank you, Ann.
Thanks, Tracy. Hi, everyone. This slide here is our snapshot of trying to identify or showing how we're going to go ahead and have folks interact with our system. Across the top row are kind of the core functions that we're looking to have some key interactions with, as far as employer registration later next year for wage reporting, and then ultimately some payments. And then down there on the left-hand column, going top to bottom, we're having the online portal where you can go ahead and log into the website and manually register, do a wage report, and make payments. The next few are if you were to do more of a bulk process. So we'll be offering a JSON API to go ahead to probably support more of the TPAs or large scale employers. As well as through our portal, we'll be allowing some file uploads for both registrations and wage reporting, either an XML or CSV file. And then finally, if we're not making payments online, we just wanted to call out some of the other methods that you can go ahead and make payments when the time comes, as far as ACH credit, a check, or using your bank bill pay. And I do want to call out, we will not be using an SFTP site. So we just wanted to go ahead and start getting that information out there. Thanks. I think that's about it.
Thanks, Anne. You make it sound so easy. All right, we'd like to walk you through a few scenarios so that you can really try and visualize what employees will see on January 1st of 2023. So let's say that Mateo here works for a business with 8 total employees. Each biweekly pay period, he earns wages totaling $1,200. Beginning on January 1st, 2023, Mateo's employer will deduct 0.45% of his wages from his paycheck for family premiums. That equals about $5.40. Because Mateo's employer has 9 or fewer employees, his employer is not required to pay an employer premium, although it may choose to pay some or all of Mateo's premium as an employee perk. Continuing this narrative through the lens of Mateo's employer. Let's just say that all 8 employees at this small business earn around the same amount of wages. If there are 6 biweekly pay periods in the quarter, Mateo's employer would deduct and remit a total premium of $32.40 for each employee, for a total quarterly remittance to CDLE of $259.20.
So next, let's consider an example of a different worker. We'll call her Elise, and Elise works for a business with 10 or more employees. Each biweekly pay period, Elise earns wages totaling $1,600. Beginning on January 1st, 2023, Elise's employer will deduct 0.45% of her wages from her paycheck for family premiums, or $7.20. Because Elise's employer has 10 or more employees, her employer will also contribute an equal employer premium of $7.20 for a total premium of $14.40 for Elise's paycheck. The employer would also be contributing 0.45% of wages for every other employee in addition to Elise. And again, Elise's employer can also choose to pay some or all of Elise's premium share as an added benefit for its employee.
Thanks, Evan. So to wrap things up here, we're going to be directing you to our online resources. And I know that many of these are being popped into the chat as well as we've been going through this presentation. We have an HR fact sheet, a local government fact sheet, and a sample pay stub on our toolkit page. We are planning to add more information and resources as the FAMLI program progresses. You can also estimate premiums and benefits with our online calculator. We have also added a dedicated page for local governments on our website at famli.colorado.gov. Just look for the local governments button on the employer page. We have a pre-recorded webinar all about how FAMLI interacts with local governments and an archive of past webinars on our website as well. We're also working on producing a local government guide that will be available to download for future reference in the coming weeks. We really do want to hear from you. You can engage with us in a variety of ways in addition to participating in these live webinars. You can see our email address listed here on the screen. You can also follow us through ongoing updates on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter via famli.colorado.gov. So at this point, I want to thank you for your patience in listening to our presentation, and we would be more than happy to open up for questions. We're going to have questions moderated by our communications team.
Thanks, Tracy. It looks like we've got a few questions in the Q&A function here. I'm going to direct the first one to Anne. Actually, there was one about QuickBooks. Will there be an update in QuickBooks to incorporate this deduction?
Jessica, thanks. I don't know if I have the full answer for that. We have had software developers, interactions with software developers through some of our weekly calls. So I know there is some chatter about those types of organizations updating their plugins, but I can't speak on behalf of QuickBooks of being able to get the all spun up and ready to go. But we'll have the information out there and availability for those organizations to tie into our system.
Thank you, Anne. I've got another one here from Lisa Chester. She's asking, will there be a form like the SUTA tax for submitting the money?
Sorry, Jessica, Batten. I'm wondering if this is similar to one of our previous conversations on the 941 form. We'll have an online form for folks to manually submit. We will have some other wage reporting like templates out there or examples of how we want the information to be submitted to us as far as the wage data. But the ability to compare it exactly to the unemployment insurance team, I don't have that knowledge right now, but maybe it's something I should look into.
And Tracy, I'm wondering if you could just reiterate how we're trying to steer away from paper forms. Most everything will be online.
Right. We're definitely taking a digital first approach to this as much as possible. We want to try and do this instantaneously and do this through digital technology to make it as quick and easy as possible rather than having pieces of paper flying around the state. So that's certainly going to be our goal. That's the way that we're going to be setting up the system. It's going to be mobile device friendly for those that are in a smaller business and maybe, you know, conduct their business through iPads or some other devices. We will be friendly to that kind of technology.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to hand this one off to Evan from Jennifer Colley. How does family interact with sick pay?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the FAMLI Act provides that where an employer offers paid sick leave, PTO, vacation, any sort of paid time off, the employer and the employee may come to an agreement whereby they use the sick leave first, or an agreement whereby they use the sick leave or any other paid time off as a top off, because the family wage replacement benefit will never be 100% of someone's wages. And so it's important to note that the statute makes it clear that an employer can't require either of those two things to happen. An employer can't require someone to use up their sick leave first and can't require them to use it to top off. But however, both can agree to do either of those two things.
Thank you, Evan. I'm going to keep this one with you from Emily Hazelton. What qualifies a local government employee or employer? Do city and county employees count, or elected officials? There's a lot in that question, but I think
I'm not sure if I entirely understand it. Elected, so I'll start backwards. Elected officials will almost always be not considered employees. In fact, I struggle to think of a situation in which they would be considered employees. And that's because the definition of employee under FAMLI Act contains a two-prong exception that's pretty common in Colorado law, which is an individual is not an employee if they are, one, free from control in the performance of their work, and two, performing the work as part of their own independent trade. That's generally going to be the case with elected officials, and they will generally, therefore, satisfy the exception. Otherwise, if employees of a local government, and that would include cities and counties, if they don't satisfy the exception, then they would be considered employees and they would be subject to family accordingly.
Here's one from Sarah Solomon. Will international visa employees need to pay family premiums?
I can take that, and the answer is yes. There are no exceptions carved out for foreign workers, as long as they are sufficiently localized in Colorado, performing the work in accordance with our premiums rules. Then they will be subject to the premiums requirements, and they could be entitled to benefits as well.
And here's one from Gardner Flanagan. How do we account for seasonal employees? Evan, do you want to take that one?
Well,
We can go
seasonal
back.
employees are covered, so I don't know exactly what is meant by account for, but they will have to collect premiums from those employees, remit premiums on their behalf if the employer meets the size threshold, and allow them to use leave if they qualify for it.
And here's one from Johnny. He asks, is the employer's liability capped at a dollar amount?
It's capped the same way that the Social Security wage is capped. Same cap as the employees have.
And Melissa Deegan asks, can owners of a company choose to be exempt from this law? Evan, can you take that one?
Sure. Sort of like elected officials, owners of a company will often be considered non-employees insofar as the owners may be often free from control and performing their independent trade, i.e. the business that they own. So if that's true, then they are not considered employees under FAMLI and wouldn't have to subject themselves to premiums and may opt in as a self-employed person. However, there are some circumstances where someone may be maybe such a minority owner or something. People can have an ownership stake in a business without being necessarily free from control or anything. So it's possible that an owner could still be considered an employee. So again, I would encourage you to look at the definition of employee under the FAMLI Act and consider whether or not the owner in question really is free from control and really is operating their independent business.
Thank you, Evan. I'm going to take Carrie Rubin's question. She has a two-part question. The first half I'm going to hand to Evan. Tracy, you can take the second half. If the employee moves out of the state of Colorado and no longer works in Colorado, what happens to those employee and employer premiums that they already paid while they were in Colorado?
Great question. There is no refund of premiums. It doesn't work like a health savings account or something where everybody has their own bank. So if you've paid in and then you leave and you're no longer a participant, there's no refund of premiums paid. And
that answers the second half of Carrie's question. She asked, 5, 10, 20 years from now, when the employer never took the leave and then retires, do they get a refund? The same answer still applies. No, we don't get a refund.
That's correct. At this point in time, there's no planned refund mechanism.
Here's one from Jennifer. How does FAMLI work with the 4 week of paid FML that state classified employees currently earn?
So we're currently working with DPA on the coordination of benefits for that. There will be more to come when we bring out that set of rules. We can anticipate that the leaves will in some way work together. What exactly that will look like, I don't have details on yet.
Here's one that maybe Anne can answer. Do you know if ADP is preparing to handle this? I have sent in a query as well.
That's awesome to reach out to your third-party administrator. I can say that ADP has been actively involved in our weekly tech calls. So they're aware and anticipating the work as well. But I would encourage anybody to get a hold of their payroll administrator or third-party administrator to make sure that those conversations are started and everyone's prepared.
Thank you, Anne. I have one here from Bella. She is asking, we are a local government and we intend to opt out, but will facilitate employee participation. When will the required communication pieces be available to share with your workforce? We are currently working on employee notification templates that local governments can use after they decide to opt out. We will have those published to our website very soon. There will be a notification template that you can customize, as well as a poster that you can put in your break rooms. However, if you want to just shoot an email to the family email address, we can get you some suggested language to use in the meantime. However, if you move past that 30-day window, we won't hold you out of compliance until we have these communications published on our website. But basically that communication piece will just let your employees know that you opted out, let them know that they have the option to opt in, and any sort of differences between our program and a private plan that you may offer to them. And here's one from Jessica. How does an employer offer a private plan or benefit without using insurance? Confused if this is classified as insurance or as a benefit plan.
So I can take that one. I think some of the confusion comes around the different types of private plans. You could opt to have a fully insured private plan through a carrier. Think of all the big carriers that you see on billboards and what have you, right? They'll likely be offering private plans, which you'd be able to purchase. Another option for you would be to say that you are going to self-fund this. You're going to bankroll it yourselves. You're going to have funds put to one side. And if your employees need to take leave for any of the reasons under FAMLI, you would cover that from your own funding. We would call that a self-funded or self-insured plan. You can use those terms somewhat interchangeably when it comes to FAMLI. And for that, the only difference is we definitely will be requiring a surety bond just to make sure that we're protecting both the family fund and also employees.
Thank you, Tracy. We have one here from Marty. What about family owned and operated private businesses when the owner is the only worker? What are their options?
So you're welcome to participate in the program as an independently employed individual. You are not, however, required to participate, but it's certainly available for you.
And one from Sarah. How do remote employees work if they live in Colorado but work for a company outside of Colorado, and vice versa if they live outside of Colorado but work for a Colorado company? Evan, can you take that one?
Sure. It primarily turns on where the work is performed. And so if someone is working remotely, but they're inside Colorado, then they will likely be subject to FAMLI. If they are working for a Colorado-based company, but they're doing so 100% remotely from Florida, then they would not be covered. I would encourage for more detail to take a close look at our premiums rules, which is on the I think the shared link of proposed and adopted rules. Yeah, I see that in the chat. And that's got the detailed breakdown of how we determine Colorado worker status for purposes of family coverage.
Tracy, I'm wondering if you can take this one from Jennifer. Does FAMLI fund FML, or is it an additional 12 to 16 weeks to this federal job protective leave?
You bet. So FML or FMLA is an unpaid job protection benefit that people have. The difference is that FAMLI is a paid leave benefit. The leaves are designed to run concurrently. There may be individual circumstances where an employee is eligible for FAMLI, but not for FMLA, size of business being one of the most obvious standouts there. But FAMLI does not in any way participate to funding of a federal leave program, nor do we have the ability to adjudicate over any kind of FMLA program.
And we have two questions here about J1 students and J1, Q1, etc. Are they exempt from Social Security? They are exempt from Social Security and Medicare tax. Would this apply to them as well? Would FAMLI apply to them? Yes.
Well, I think, and this is slightly uncertain territory, so so take this response with a grain of salt. But if you're here on a J1 visa and you're engaged in a legitimate work study program, you may not meet the definition of employee in the first place, because the broad definition of employee under FAMLI and under other Colorado labor statutes requires that the work be done for the benefit of the employer. And courts have reasoned in other contexts that certain work study programs are really for the benefit of the student and not for the benefit primarily of the employer, thereby exempting them from even being an employee in the first place. So that could be the answer with the J1 students. But again, without being an expert by any means on J1 visas, I would take my answer with a grain of salt.
Thank you, Evan. I'm going to hand Monica's question over to Tracy. Do the employee of family paid premiums follow them, the employee, if they leave one Colorado company for another Colorado company?
Yes, they do. That eligibility for leave will follow the employee.
Okay. Let me check something in the chat. We did have a question about providing suggested language that we can include in employee manuals. We will be drafting and providing a complete employer guide that will have all of this information and more, and some suggested language that you can include in your employee manuals. That's currently in production, but we will be posting that to our website to round out that employer toolkit. Again, if you need help drafting any specific language, you can feel free to reach out to us and we can do what you can to get you what you need in the meantime. But everything that we have currently is on our website. Feel free to tweak that and round it out to whatever needs you have right now. It looks like we've got a few more questions in. Adam asks, how could a business with a great attrition rate deal with family if their employee numbers vary throughout the year? Is it wise to still incorporate premiums in this situation?
So it is wise to still incorporate premiums, as you'll be submitting premium payments to us on a quarterly basis. You'll also be uploading wage reports, and it's through those wage reports that the FAMLI system will calculate for you what your premium payments is going to be. Hopefully that helps a little bit, Adam.
Evan, I'm wondering if you could just reiterate counting your employees and how they'll be calculated once a year. I have the slide up, but I think that might help Adam's question as well.
Sure. It basically mirrors the FMLA method. And so you look at the previous calendar year, and if an employee was an employee during 20 or more calendar work weeks, then that employee counts towards your total. And so for someone who has a high attrition or some seasonal or something, that's where that counting really comes into play and might be the determining characteristic of whether or not a seasonal employee works enough weeks to be considered an employee.
I want to revisit a question that was answered in the Q&A from Juan. He asks, so from my understanding, an employee has to be employed 20 weeks. To qualify this, I own a staffing company and having rotating temp employees all the time. I want to make sure I am understanding it correctly.
Yeah, so there's no employment requirement for this leave. That seems to be a confusion point. It's not like FMLA where you have to work 1,250 hours to be eligible to utilize the benefit. The way that FAMLI is set up is that you must have earned $2,500 while working for your employer in the state, but it's not tied to a number of weeks. Evan, feel free to expand on that if you wish to.
Well, I would also add that the $2,500 threshold is met by working for any employer subject to family premiums in the preceding 4 to 5 calendar quarters prior to the need for the benefit. So as you can imagine, most people who are working will earn $2,500 or more over a span of a year and a quarter. So that means most people that you hire will be eligible for benefits on day one.
Thank you, Evan and Tracy. And I believe that answered Loretta's question about a time frame for when employees can take the leave before they become eligible and how long they have to work before they are eligible. So we covered that. Hillary asked, can you review the application approval and employer notification process? Tracy, can you take that one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So Hillary, we're still building it and designing it. Right now, we have contracted or in the process of contracting with a vendor that's going to build that system for us. It's certainly something that we would welcome your feedback on as we continue to build and design that system. What I can tell you is there will be an application process to the state directly. We will be communicating to employers to advise you that your employees have requested leave. There is also a requirement within the statute that your employees let you know if it's foreseeable that they are going to be requiring leave. So if they're scheduling a knee replacement in 6 weeks, they should let you know that. But obviously, if they end up in the emergency room today, they weren't able to give you any foreseeable notice for that kind of leave need. So there's definitely going to be notifications happening. Exactly what that will look like, we would love your participation in designing that, so we make sure we have something that's acceptable to employers and to those that are needing to utilize the leave benefit as workers.
And here's one from Carol that I think you can touch on as well, Tracy. The individual employee registers with FAMLI, but do they send in their own 0.45% contribution, or does it have to be sent in by the employer?
Yeah, thanks, Carol. So it's not the individual employee that registers with FAMLI unless they are self-employed or unless they're part of a local government agency that is not participating in the program. So let's assume that neither of those things apply for you right now. As a business owner, the business would register with FAMLI. The business would collect premiums from their employees out of their regular paychecks. And then once a quarter, the business would remit those premiums to the FAMLI when they upload that wage data to us. Hopefully that helped with your question.
And here's one from Jennifer, and you touched on this a little bit previously, Tracy, but going back to FMLA, would one employee be able to take 12 weeks of FMLA and 12 to 16 weeks of FML, I'm assuming you need family, within a 12-month rolling period?
I think there may be very, very rare occasions that could be possible. I think it's exceedingly unlikely. As I said earlier, FAMLI is designed to run concurrently with FMLA. The chances are very high that if you're eligible to receive FMLA and you've also requested FAMLI, they will be running concurrently.
And I'm going to put the local government slide back up for Carol. It sounds like she was referring to a local government employee who wants to opt in. So there are two different options for the local government employer who decides to opt out, whether they want to handle the administrative burden for their employees and deduct the premium from their paychecks and remit to the family division. You as a local government employee can choose to do that even if you opt out. Or you can completely opt out, in which case your individual employees would be on their own to register with the family system and remit their premium payments once a quarter along with their wage data. We also have one from Hillary. Does family offer job protection or just pay during the leave? Tracy,
So that's really going to depend on how long the employee's been with you. So it does offer protection from retaliation on day one. But as far as protection, insofar as they must return to the same position, those kind of same benefits that you would normally see under FMLA, that's what kicks in at around the 180-day mark.
And Evan, I'm wondering if you can take this one from Virginia Wall. She's part of a religious organization. We have over 40 employees on our payroll. We have churches that process their own payroll. Most have less than 10 employees. Would we fall into the area where we are required to have the employee match, or would it depend on the location?
So without knowing more, if they're all employees of the same employer and they essentially work in branches, for lack of a better term, then the employee count would be 40. However, if the different churches are, for example, maybe bound together by, like a common sort of like church governing body, maybe, but they all have their own individual FEINs, then you would look at each of the individual churches.
Jessica asked, does this or will this apply to nonprofits as well?
Yes, Jessica, it will.
And nonprofits are not considered local government organizations, correct, Evan? So these nonprofits would be required to participate.
Correct.
Looks like we have answered all of the questions, the outstanding questions. So I'm searching through some of the typed responses to see if we need to revisit anything.
The question just came through from Juan. When can we see employees taking family? Are they able to start as soon as January 1st? So January 1st of 2024, yes, we are still over 12 months away from employees being able to start utilizing the leave benefit.
Well, thank you to everyone from the FAMLI team for today's event. We are grateful for this time. There was a lot of information covered today, so the recording, the slides will be sent out to all the attendees via constant contact after the event, and it'll have the location. So give us a little bit of time to process the recording and kind of clean up the Q&A text document, so we don't have we kind of can clean through some of the questions for clarity. We'll work with the FAMLI team on that. And then stay tuned as well. The FAMLI division is hosting a number of town halls across the state through the rest of the summer and fall for additional opportunities to meet some of the folks in person and learn more about the process. And we'll do our best to share all these resources. And thank you again for everything today, for all our attendees, for a big program for workers and businesses in the state.
Thank you so much, Mark. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thanks for asking us tough questions.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, with that, we'll end it, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.